I get it, you standing in the aisle of your online cart, scrolling past endless subwoofer options, and the thought that you might waste hard-earned cash on a bass monster that ends up gathering dust is nagging at you. You've probably heard the hype about deep, cinematic thump, and room-shaking power, but you also know that a mismatched sub can just muddy the soundtrack and leave you with a pricey paperweight. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and that's the same link I'll remind you of at the end, so you can jump straight to the checkout if you decide this is the right fit. When I started digging into the SVS PB1000 Pro bundle, the first thing that stood out was the fact you're not just getting a single subwoofer, you're getting a 4-pack, each paired with its own dedicated 325 Watt RMS, 820 plus watt peak sledge STA325D amplifier, plus an isolation platform that promises to keep the vibration off your walls and floor. That kind of package is rare. Most brands sell a single sub and leave you to buy a separate amp if you want the full power. In real-world terms, it means you could set up a single 12-inch sub in a modest living room, or you could spread 4 across a larger home theater, or even a dedicated media room, and still have each driver running off its own amp, which eliminates the need for a complex multi-amp wiring scheme. So who actually benefits from a 4-sub bundle? If you already own a sizable home theater system, say a 7.1 or 9.1 speaker layout, and you've noticed that the bass feels uneven, with one corner booming while another stays quiet, the SVS PB1000 Pro can be placed in those dead zones to smooth out the response. The ported design, combined with the High-Excursion 12-inch driver, gives it a natural, extended low-frequency roll-off that works well for both movie explosions and the sub-bass you hear in electronic music. Because each sub has its own sledge amp, you can fine-tune the gain and phase on each unit independently, which is a huge advantage when trying to align the timing across a larger space. In practice, you'll find that a properly placed 4-sub setup can turn a decent 5.1 system into a truly immersive experience without having to upgrade your main speakers. On the flip side, if you live in a small apartment or a bedroom where space is at a premium, the bundle quickly becomes more of a burden than a benefit. Each PB1000 Pro weighs around 30 pounds, and even with the isolation pads, you'll need a solid floor or a sturdy platform to avoid transmitting vibration into the building structure. The sheer volume of 4 subwoofers can also overwhelm a modest AVR or a modestly powered front end, leading to a scenario where the bass is so loud it drowns out dialogue, especially if you haven't spent the time to calibrate each sub's crossover and level. In those tighter environments, a single high-quality sub from the same line like the SVS PB1000 might be a more sensible choice. One of the practical strengths of this bundle is the built-in 50 MHz Analog DSP that SVS has baked into each sledge amp. In everyday use, that translates to a tighter, more controlled bass response that stays locked to the rest of the spectrum, rather than ballooning into a sloppy rumble. The DSP also gives you a suite of preset modes: movie, music, game, and a custom setting so you can quickly dial in the right character without digging through endless menus. I've seen people struggle with external DSP units that require a separate computer or a dedicated controller. Here the processing lives inside the amp, and the front panel lets you adjust phase, polarity, and level on the fly. For a typical movie night, you can select the movie preset, set the crossover around 80 Hz, and the subs will automatically align with your main speakers, delivering that low-end punch without making the whole room feel like a subwoofer factory. However, the convenience of built-in DSP also means you're locked into SVS's firmware, and while the company pushes regular updates, you don't have the flexibility to load third-party EQ or room correction software if you're a tweaker. Another nuance is the power handling. The 325W RMS rating is generous, but it assumes you'll feed the amp a clean, stable 120V line with adequate current headroom. If you're on a circuit that's already shared with other high-draw appliances, you may notice the AMP's auto-protect circuitry kicking in during those thunderous movie moments. In short, the system is powerful enough for a large room, but you need to make sure your home's electrical infrastructure can keep up. The isolation platform that comes with each sub is a subtle yet important piece of the puzzle. It's not just a rubber mat, it's a purpose-engineered frame that decouples the sub's chassis from the floor, reducing transmission of low-frequency vibrations that can cause rattling in adjacent rooms, or even structural fatigue over time. For people who live in condos or share walls with neighbors, this can be the difference between a